Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a real giant of literature. Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities. We've got a great book review of it. And, well, our mission here is to kind of boil it down for you. Think of this as your fast track to getting the core of why this novel is still so powerful. You know, the characters you won't forget, the themes that just don't get old, and honestly, insights that feel surprisingly relevant even now. So if you want to get a handle on what makes for truly powerful storytelling, or maybe dig into some serious historical context, or even just wrestle with those big human questions, yeah, you're definitely in the right place.
It really is pretty amazing how Dickens, writing back in the Victorian era, could capture something as huge and politically charged as the French Revolution and still make it feel so deeply human. This deep dive, I think, will give you a really solid grasp on why A Tale of Two Cities is, well, such a foundational piece of English literature. You'll get the key takeaways quickly and thoroughly without getting bogged down.
All right, let's jump in then. So Charles Dickens, I mean, he was a master of novels with a social conscience, wasn't he? Giving us things like Oliver Twist, Great Expectations.
Absolutely. Classics.
But A Tale of Two Cities, which came out in 1859, it sort of stands apart.
Yeah.
Maybe because of that huge dramatic scale, set right against the French Revolution.
Yeah, exactly. He wasn't just, telling a good yarn. He was using stories as a tool almost. Dickens used his fiction to really shine a light on the harsh realities of things like debtors' prisons or the legal system of his day, which could be incredibly corrupt. And that's why his portrayal of revolutionary justice in the book, while terrifying, felt so real, so visceral to the people reading it back then. This novel, maybe more than any other, really showcases his knack for weaving together something deeply personal with these massive historical events.
And it starts with arguably one of the most famous opening lines ever written. Right? It was the best of times, it was the worst of times.
Instantly iconic.
It just perfectly sets that mood, that turbulent 18th century vibe, split between London and Paris.
Okay, so the plot itself, at its heart, it centers on Charles Darnay. He's a French aristocrat, but he's trying desperately to escape his family's awful history by living in England. And there, he falls for Lucy Manette. Her father, Dr. Manette, was locked away unjustly in the Bastille for, nearly 20 years?
Almost 2 decades, yeah. A terrible ordeal.
And then there's Sidney Carton. He's this brilliant English lawyer, but very cynical, very troubled. And he also loves Lucy, but he feels, kind of unworthy.
Right. And building on that basic setup, Dickens' real genius is how he tangles these personal stories, these individual lives, with the enormous, terrifying events of the French Revolution. Because when the revolution kicks off, Darnay gets pulled back to Paris, tragically, and ends up arrested by the revolutionaries. And this whole situation builds towards, honestly, one of the most moving and, frankly, heartbreaking endings in literature. It's where Sidney Carton makes that ultimate sacrifice. You know the line. It is a far, far better thing that I do than I have ever done. Yeah. Chills. Every time.
It's just this profound moment about resurrection, redemption, revolution, all coming together in this one incredibly human act.
That quote really does stick with you. So let's dig into those deeper themes. What does it all mean? The novel tackles some really big ideas that still resonate, like resurrection, for instance. It's not just religious here, is it? It feels like almost every main character gets some kind of rebirth. Dr. Manette is literally recalled to life after being imprisoned for so long, basically a broken man rebuilt by love.
Exactly. And Carton's journey is that theme, personified. He finds his redemption, his meaning, right in that moment of self-sacrifice. He transforms from this cynical kind of wasted life into someone showing immense moral courage. Which leads us to a core question Dickens seems to be asking us, through the whole story. How much are we really willing to give up? For love, for justice, for other people. And he doesn't sugarcoat the revolution's dark side either. He shows the cruelty of the old aristocracy that sparked it, yes, but also the equally terrifying mob justice that followed. He definitely doesn't glorify the violence.
No, not at all.
But he forces you to look at where it came from.
He really paints such a stark, vivid picture. Which brings us nicely to his writing style, actually. It's almost visual, isn't it? Like he's painting with words.
Very descriptive.
His descriptions are just so rich, so immersive. You think of the red cap of liberty slowly turning into this symbol of mob tyranny, or the imagery around the wine shop representing that simmering rebellion.
Yeah, those are just background details.
Exactly. They feel like characters themselves, packed with symbolic meaning. And okay, yes, the language can sometimes feel a bit dense. A little old-fashioned for modern readers.
Sure, it takes a bit of adjustment.
But it's absolutely worth sticking with it for what you get out of it.
Absolutely. And another really striking thing is how the two cities, London and Paris, they're not just places where the story happens. They function as powerful symbols.
Right. London representing maybe peace, a kind of order.
While Paris, especially during the Terror, becomes the symbol of chaos, anarchy. But it's not quite that simple, is it?
No, it feels more nuanced.
Yeah, Dickens is sort of subtly suggesting that the potential for both order and extreme chaos exists in any society. It's like a mirror to the human condition itself, which, doesn't really change that much over time. A bit
Yeah.
chilling, actually.
That's a great point. So, okay, we've sort of journeyed through Dickens' sharp social eye. We've traced this really intricate plot, weaving personal lives into huge historical moments. We've dug into these powerful themes, resurrection, revolution, sacrifice, and touched on his very distinct, vivid writing.
Yeah.
There's really no argument. It's a masterpiece. For me, what really sticks are those incredibly sharp images he creates, that symbolic weight given to London and Paris, and of course, Sidney Carton's character arc. Just unforgettable. It's one of those stories that stays with you, makes you think, and maybe makes you appreciate a bit of stability in our own times.
That's definitely a key takeaway. Dickens really pushes us on that central question, doesn't he? How much are we willing to give up? For love, for justice, for others? And even if the language feels old-fashioned sometimes, like you said, the core emotions, the lessons, they're timeless. Which maybe raises a final thought for you, the listener, to kind of chew on. Think about how those individual acts of sacrifice, the kind we see in this story, can actually influence the huge sweep of history. And then what might that imply about our own lives, our own choices, even the small ones we make every day? What's the ripple effect of our actions in, well, what often feels like a chaotic world?
That is a really powerful thought to end on. So whether you feel inspired to pick up A Tale of Two Cities yourself, or maybe read more about the French Revolution, or just, reflect on why stories like this endure,
Yeah.
we really hope this deep dive has given you a useful shortcut, a good understanding of why this novel continues to grab readers generation after generation. Thanks so much for joining us.